What does your process look like? What is the Wildstory process?
Yeah, it's, really based on three pillars of culture, brand, and content. And, what we've identified is that those three things are really the life cycle of a brand. They really impact the overall business and the business strategy. As I mentioned, we co-create, we prefer to co-create. And so we go into work sessions. I don't call them meetings. They are definitely work sessions where we are co-creating with a small group of leaders within a business. Typically starts off with either a discovery or a strategy session, depending on where you are in your life cycle as a business. And then we get into, through those work sessions, we get into developing the brand, answering the 8 questions. Who are we here for? Who you serve? Why are we here? What do we do and how do we do it? What's our backstory? What's our vision? What makes us different? What do we value the most? And what's our personality? And then we go ahead and we just start to use that to develop core and targeted messaging concepts, which then we go and we take what we've learned from there, and we'll typically make what we call stylescapes, which are 3 kind of mood boards of visual direction so that we can really work with a client on that. We like to do a mild, medium, and a spicy version so that we can kind of, hey, this is kind of by the book. This is where we think maybe you should be. And then spicy is, hey, this is if we take a chance, this is what it might look like. And this is we're really pushing what the visual will look like. And we move into taking everything we've learned. And the reason we do that messaging and stuff is because then we can get into the visual design phase and start in the creative and start to test that, and start to see how does that lay out visually? Does that work with the logo concepts that we're working? And they're kind of working like this, So if we start to get onto something visually that maybe isn't supporting what we came up with verbally, we can kind of go back and tweak it a little bit so that it all works. Because, we want it to ultimately, work really nicely together. And so, as I mentioned, we get into that design because without great design, great strategy falls flat. So we want to make sure that those complement each other. Once we get all the assets, we usually deliver logo, typography, color palettes, photography guidelines, iconography, signage, badges, email templates, like your decks, your newsletters, your social. And, and that can come in a variety of different deliverables. For smaller clients, that just might be, hey, here's your digital files. For a little bit of larger clients that need a toolkit and need to have everyone on the same page, I can go to style guides, brand books, brand briefs, other assets. And once we have that toolkit, and by the way, that, we can have a 1-page style guide and logos, which works for a lot of people. That's how, we started our company. We did logos and a 1-page style sheet. We didn't need to spend a ton of money, but then as over time, we start to build a brand book with kind of outlining, articulating the brand story, who are we, some history, brand guidelines, especially if you're a company that's really into a lot of content creation. A lot of times those brand toolkits will have guidelines for, emails and, video and all sorts of stuff, right? So just depending on how big your organization is, you need more. And we'll deliver, that story and the voice, tone, look and feel of the brand. Like I said, it could be a 60-page brand book, 1-page style guide or brand brief, social media Bible. A lot of times, if you're big on that, how do we sound? What do we talk like? Sample posts. It's really hard kind of organizing all that stuff to make sure that it's consistent. We have people out there communicating. And as we've all seen, things can get sideways very, very quickly if someone communicates in the wrong way or the wrong tone. So we do, we go out of our way to make sure that never happens. And then the real work begins. We move into the doing and telling, that brand storytelling phase, that content phase. And one of the biggest outcomes of our entire process, besides everything I mentioned, is just this roadmap for what a business should do next with regards to their content. Everyone has different customers showing up. Everyone has different customers, and showing up where they are and how they want to be talked to is really, really important. And so there's this kind of weird message out there that you got to be everywhere. You got to do all these things. You got to have a podcast, a video channel, YouTube, be on Insta, be on LinkedIn. Well, that's just not true, You need to be where your customers are. And in my opinion, you need to be really good at 1 or 2 things. So be really, if you think your customers are on a podcast, be awesome at that. You think your customers are really going to be on Instagram? Great. Be awesome at that. And we can help you out with that and what that looks like. Once you get really, really awesome at that, maybe after 6 months, a year, then you can start adding other things to your content. And by the way, once you get really awesome at that, you can start reusing that content in different ways. But if you're, I'll give ourselves an example. I'm the primary content creator here at Wildstory. I'm really good at writing. And I've dabbled in, YouTube, like, and this is, I wouldn't consider necessarily this YouTube, like doing more kind of curated YouTube videos. I've dabbled in all sorts of different things. And like what I found is like, I'm just not really that good at YouTube because you got to edit it, you got to produce it. I love the format, but like it's draining on our business. And so the areas that we really focus on are writing on our blog, thought leadership. And then we take that and we can cobble that and start like, so for example, I just wrote a thought leadership piece called Start With Who. And it was all about putting your customers first, And so that started as a blog post. I then turned to that, some of the gems that I thought were gems that I'd written in that blog post into a 10-slide carousel, posted that at Instagram. That visual, I just export those 10 slides into one big JPEG, right? Telling that whole story. That becomes a LinkedIn post. I'm not really on LinkedIn. I just kind of show up there, but that's not my focus. But why I do that is, hey, I've got this content anyways. People on LinkedIn haven't seen it, but I'm not designing this content for LinkedIn per se. Maybe the message that I post will be like a little more business oriented, but I'm just making it work for me. But really where I'm focused is writing, Instagram carousels, and then, as you know, our Baby Got Backstory podcast, because those are the things that I'm good at, that I get energy from, and then are easy, and that's where my customer shows up. So that's like, you got to be real, you got to be there, and you got to be, really thoughtful about A, what can you accomplish, and B, where your customers. And then thinking about how your customer is going to interact with us at every step of our customer journey, right? So customers, come in from awareness stage, an interest stage, a purchase stage, a repeat purchase, and then finally, hopefully they become like a recommender or a raving fan. And how they interact with us is very different in terms of content. And we need to map that out. We need to be very intentional about that and thinking about how we need to adjust our conversation. Obviously, someone who loves your brand, you're not going to talk to them the same way that someone that knows nothing about you. Much like a person in your life, you have different intimate conversations with those people that love you and are in your life versus someone who you just meet at a cocktail party and just trying to get to know you, and they're open to it, but like how do you talk to them? And so from there, how can we adjust our conversation, our verbal and visual conversation, to meet and exceed customer expectations? And then how do we just build a content plan built based on all that with articles, video, interactive content? As I mentioned, how do we build that content plan so that we take your thing you're strongest at, and then make additional content from that ongoing, and then you get to do what you love to do, which is build your business and further your own mission as a business.
Man, this was incredibly insightful. I've owned an agency for 23 years, and I feel like I just went to like advanced 401 class on branding. So incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for your time, Marc. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for the awesome questions. And as you know, I love to nerd out about this anytime. So anytime you want to talk about any of this, I would love to do so.